This is Marta from Ruby Soup with Pearl Juice, and today I am doing a more laid back, a little bit non-serious video where I'm going to talk about my favorite non-canon cartoon ships. Before we get started, though, I do have to warn you all that there's spoilers for a lot of fandoms. There's going to be spoilers for the anime Death Note. There's going to be spoilers for My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. There's going to be spoilers for The Land Before Time. There's also going to be spoilers for Sword in the Stone. So I guess viewer caution. But let's get started. Let's start with a ship that's not really romantic necessarily. I don't ship these two romantically, but I do ship these two characters as BFFs. And that is Riley Freeman from the Boondocks and Quinn Morgendorffer from Daria. Now, Daria was a MTV animation aimed at teenagers and adults, which was about a girl, Daria, who is really cynical, and she's kind of an outcast. And she had a sister, Quinn, who was very superficial but very popular, especially with boys. She was very popular with boys. And Riley Freeman is from a TV show called The Boondocks. And in The Boondocks, we followed a young man called Huey Freeman, who is very politically engaged and he wants to shake up the system. And it was kind of following his misadventures. And he had a little brother, Riley, who was like a troublemaker and was very materialistic. And because Quinn is 15 in canon and Riley is 8 in canon, then of course I do like the idea of these two meeting, but I kind of like the idea of them becoming like best friends, like becoming best pals that hang out together. And there's something about these two that I think that they would kind of connect with the fact that they're both very they're both very materialistic and they're both kind of really full of themselves. And there's just something about that I think that they would understand each other. So I really like the idea of these two being best friends. It just makes me so happy. All right, and another, we're going to go to two honorable mentions of favorite cartoon ships that I don't really ship them, as in that I don't really want these two to get together now, but I do kind of like the idea of them having a past relationship and then breaking up. And one is Madame Mim and Merlin from Sword in the Stone. Now, if you've seen Sword in the Stone, there's this really funny scene where Madame Mim tries to eat King Arthur and she turns him in. He's turned into a bird and she turns into a cat and tries to eat him. And then Merlin comes in and says, "You can't do this. He's my pupil." And then Madame Mim is like, "Well, if you got a problem with it, then we can have a wizard's duel." And then they have a wizard's duel, and it's completely crazy. But the thing that I really love about these two is that they're just so, they don't even talk to each other like mortal enemies. They talk to each other more like really bitter exes that had a really bad breakup. It's more like she's like, "Oh no, my pain in the butt ex has showed up and he's gonna boss me around and I'm not gonna let him do that." And in fact, when I was showing this to my boyfriend, he even had this misunderstanding where when King Arthur first crashes through Madame Mim's house, then because he thought that Madame Mim's house looked exactly like Merlin's house, so he even turned to me and he said that, "Well, who's this woman? Is this woman Merlin's wife?" Or and I was like, "Well, in my mind, yes." So there you go. And after that, if we go to the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fandom, a lot of people in the fandom like to think that Celestia and Discord used to have a relationship before he became bad and that kind of stuff. I don't really care so much for Celestia's character. I find her very lukewarm and not very interesting. I much prefer Princess Luna as a character. And Princess Luna also became bad at some point. So in my mind, if Discord was involved with one of the princesses in the past, I actually think that it makes more sense that he would have been involved with Luna. So I tend to kind of like ship Luna and Discord, as in that they are people that maybe casually dated and then broke up because Discord tried to take over Equestria. Okay, but enough of that. Now let's talk about actual ships that I ship. Um, and let's go to the Death Note fandom. Now, a lot of people in the Death Note fandom like to ship Light and L, and they also like to ship Mellow and Matt. My favorite ship in Death Note is, in fact, a very kind of maybe not unpopular, but not really all that common ship. I really ship Mikami Teru and Takara Kiyomi. And the thing that I love about these two is that, like, Teru is very stoic, and so is Kiyomi. And I just think that Kiyomi and Teru, like, they're both so weird and have, like, such odd ideas of morality that they just might work. Like, it's just crazy enough to work, this relationship. And I also kind of just think, like, I think, like, Takara also gets a little bit weird hate in the fandom. Like, all of the characters in Death Note are really unlikable, and they're all basically terrible people, really. But people tend to be, like, really hostile towards Takara. I like Takara. I think she's kind of, she is kind of, like, bitchy, and she is kind of mean-spirited, but I kind of think that's part of her charm. But that's just my opinion, of course. And another ship that I kind of like, I mean, it's kind of a crack ship, but I like it anyway, is Ryuk and Rem. And these two are Shinigamis, and Ryuk kind of just thinks that everything in the human world is funny, and it humors him, and he just kind of like, and he's kind of like a little bit of a joker. He does a lot of really humoristic things. And then you get to Rem, and Rem is like constantly very somber and very melancholic, and she finds everything that humans do kind of disgusting. She kind of thinks that humans are ugly creatures, while Ryuk thinks that humans are interesting. So I kind of just like the idea of these two getting together just because of that polar opposite dynamic, and also, like, it is kind of an interesting thing, like, how they would kind of push and pull each other a little bit. And of course, because, like, I know, like, in the canon, like, Shinigamis aren't allowed to have sex with humans, and they're not allowed to have sex with each other. That second one, I don't quite get, if I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I get why you wouldn't have sex with humans, but why can't Shinigami have sex with each other? That I don't quite get. But because of this role anyway, you could write some really interesting angsty stuff from that. In fact, I read some fanfics where they used that rule as a source of angst between these two, and it's kind of interesting. Alright, and then if we go to a completely other fandom, we get to South Park. And my favorite non-canon ship from South Park is, in fact, one that is so rare. I think I've seen maybe one fan art on it, but I have never found any fan fiction on it. And that is the ship between Eric Cartman and Shelley Marsh. Like, Shelley Marsh is, like, really angry, and she's really hostile, and she's really kind of, like, has really big anger issues. And Eric Cartman has the same problem. He's really angry, and he's also really aggressive. And I feel like if these two got together, like, their dynamic would just be great. I think, like, they would just, like, their whole dynamic would probably be just them screaming and insulting each other. And then because they both have the same kind of temperament, then they would actually bond over that. And I just think that would just be, like, such an awesome dynamic. But unfortunately, I haven't found any fan fiction that would actually explore this. Or, like, if you guys know of any, please comment down below, because I am a little bit dying just to see these two get together in a fanfic. So that is my favorite non-canon ship from South Park. Eric Cartman and Shelley Marsh. And then, like, if we're gonna go to another crossover ship, I enjoy crossover ships because I think it kind of lends to more possibilities. If you look at my blog post down below with the literary non-canon ships, I did a lot of crossover ships there too. The earliest crossover ships that I really got into, mini story time here. When I was a teenager, I was in a writing class, and one of the things that we had to do for this writing class is that we had to write a fanfic. The teachers kind of explained to us what fanfic was, and then they kind of explained to us that you have to take two characters from two different stories and you have to write a shipfic, essentially. And the two characters that I took and I wrote a shipfic of was Huey Freeman and Lisa Simpson. Huey Freeman from Boondocks, that is, and Lisa Simpson from, well, The Simpsons. And I guess like I was kind of drawn to these two getting together because they're both like really, like, their whole characterization is a little bit of their idealism and their drive to make the world a better place. Now, I have to admit that I do think that even if they would get together, I think Huey at some point he would lose interest, and I do think that he probably would break up with Lisa. And I do think that he would, in the end of the day, I think he would probably marry Jasmine. If he got married, he might not. But I think he would, in the end, prefer Jasmine to Lisa. Because I think Huey would kind of get a little bit annoyed with Lisa. Okay, and then we're gonna get to one of my, like, maybe the first ship that I ever shipped in my entire life. And I think like I think I was 7 when I first started shipping these two. And that is Sarah and Littlefoot from The Land Before Time. Now, The Land Before Time is a movie directed by Don Bluth. It was a movie that came out in the 80s, and it's about dinosaurs that try to, after a meteor kind of comes and destroys most of their way of life, they're trying to get to this great valley. And Littlefoot is the protagonist. He's a long neck, as they call them. And he befriends a group of other kind of dinosaurs. And Sarah is like Littlefoot's rival. She's kind of like the bully with a heart of gold in this film. And the thing that I always kind of interpreted a little bit was that I actually always thought that one of the reasons why she picked on him so much was because she kind of liked him. And in fact, if you watch some of the sequels, and there they even hint a little bit that she definitely does like him a little bit. Whether he likes her back, that's the question. But either way, like, there is like something also like kind of sweet how Sarah has like a really bad temper, and Littlefoot is like really gentle, and he has like the patience of a saint in a way. And even in the original film, there's some really nice scenes between these two. Like, she's too proud to eat food that he has collected for his friends, and she's trying to get leaves off of this tree. And while she's hitting her head against the tree, the Littlefoot comes and he's holding leaves. And after she has hit the tree with her head, he drops the leaves down on the ground, and then she's like, oh yay, I succeeded, I got leaves. And Littlefoot kind of shakes his head at her, but kind of lets her have this victory. And that, I just think, like, is such a great dynamic, and that's one of the reasons why I ship these two, is because Sarah has kind of a little bit of a bad temper, and she has to kind of learn to cope with that. But I think like Littlefoot would have the patience to kind of put up with her bad temper and with her bad sides. And I think like she would probably, like, if she was in a relationship with Littlefoot, then she would kind of learn from there to kind of be a little bit of a better person. So I think they would complement each other in a very kind of very cute way. I just think it's a cute ship. It's a cute ship. I've actually heard that it's somewhat popular in the fandom, but I actually think it's really hard to find fan art of these two. All right, and now we get to the cream of the crop, the crown jewel of all of my ships, and this is a ship that is really close to my heart. I go crazy over these two. I just love the idea of these two being together, and that is, of course, Fluttershy, and now I don't have a toy of him, unfortunately. Discord. I just think like their chemistry and the way they bounce off each other is just so interesting and so like I could just I could just watch the scenes where they interact with each other like over and over again because it's just so flawless. Discord is interesting because he's like a trickster archetype. And Fluttershy is more like the very shy, very withdrawn character. And it's kind of fun to see like a trickster type with a very shy type getting together and bouncing off each other. In fact, I shipped them a little bit already when I saw the return of Harmony. And there's this scene where Discord has them all in the labyrinth and he's trying to corrupt them all. Fluttershy starts saying to Discord that because Discord says like, oh, well, you know, it seems like your friends have abandoned you. And she says, no, they're not trying. No, I'm sure they're doing their best to try and find me. And Discord as the trickster, he's saying, oh, but I mean, it must be irritating to you how your friends are always pointing out your flaws. Oh no, I mean, you know, I think it's great that they're trying to just make me the best person that I can be. And he's like, yeah, but you must think it's annoying how they think you're weak and helpless. And she's like, no, but I am weak and helpless. And she's like, and people interpret this different ways. Some people interpret that she's saying this because she's so overly nice. I interpret this that she's kind of trolling him in that scene. And just from that, I just thought that, oh wow, like these two would have such a great chemistry. And in fact they do, because then later on she does reform him, and they actually at this point in the TV series they're incredibly close friends. And in fact I would say that I think like to even call them non-canon is a little bit questionable because the TV show is very clearly like pushing a little bit that there is definitely a little bit of a romantic subtext going on there. Yeah, but those were some of my favorite cartoon non-canon ships. What are some of your cartoon non-canon ships? Please leave some comments. If you like this video, click the like button. And if there's nothing else that you guys want to talk about, then I'll just see you in my next video.